Clear the courtroom! Exclamation point. Now, you can spend your life working in courtrooms and never hear those words. Clear the courtroom. And if you have spent time in Judge Juan Merchan's courtroom, it would feel all the more impossible that you are hearing the words clear the courtroom and that you were hearing those words said repeatedly and loudly and most shockingly of all, angrily by Judge Juan Merchan, as we did today at 4:01 p.m. And as I was walking out of the courtroom, I asked a retired New York City judge who was in the audience today how many times he had to clear the courtroom when he was a judge. His answer was what I expected. Never. In a multi-week trial, a courtroom becomes a community. Everyone gets to know each other, visually at least. We members of the news media make new friends at other news organizations. During the breaks, when we can talk, the jury becomes very familiar with all of the lawyers. And they know which of us in the audience section are the regulars and who are the tourists popping in for a day. And the leader of every courtroom community is the judge. He or she sits literally above us all at a higher altitude as a symbol of the authority that the judge actually does have. A good trial judge who keeps things moving efficiently, does not waste time, and is very solicitous of the jury's needs and does everything he or she can to accommodate the jury and treats the jury as the most important people in the room, usually has the respect and the gratitude of that jury. And later, after the trial, when some jurors will be asked by their friends about the judge, their shorthand quick answer often is, I love him, or I love her. Love the judge. That's very common with juries. The jury in Judge Juan Merchan's courtroom has every reason to feel every positive thing that any juror has ever felt about their trial judge, their boss. And so, I know from experience, as well as I know anything about courtroom life, that the jury didn't like it one bit today when the only testifying witness that the Trump defense is going to call decided to openly disrespect the judge that the jury respects so fully. Robert Costello was the second witness called by the defense and its last witness. There aren't going to be any more witnesses. The first witness the defense called was a paralegal who works for the Trump defense team who was simply there to introduce a spreadsheet that he created of a list of phone calls. That witness did not provide any testimonial evidence in the case. That witness will never be quoted by anyone, not a real evidentiary witness. And so the entire Trump defense comes down to the testimony of attorney Robert Costello. Robert Costello, who used to work as a federal prosecutor for Rudolph Giuliani as his boss. Robert Costello was one of the lawyers Michael Cohen considered retaining for his criminal defense after the FBI executed search warrants at Michael Cohen's home, at his hotel room where he was temporarily staying, and in his office, which was located exactly 20 floors above where I'm sitting right now in this vast office building in Rockefeller Center. Michael Cohen decided not to hire Robert Costello, and today anyone could see why. For once, the worst criminal defense lawyer in the room was not one employed by Donald Trump. I have not seen a worse criminal defense lawyer than Robert Costello, or a stupider one, based on just what we saw him do on the witness stand today in court. Trump criminal defense lawyer Emil Bovee did the questioning. Assistant District Attorney Susan Hoffinger did the objecting to Attorney Bovee's questions. Almost all of the district attorney's objections were sustained instantly by Judge Merchan, who makes very quick decisions about objections. But because Robert Costello answered questions even quicker than that, his answers frequently were entered in the record just as the objection was being raised. Question. Is that term, back channel, is that a term that Mr. Giuliani used? Answer, yes. Ms. Hovinger, objection. Judge Merchan sustained. Ms. Hovinger moved to strike, Your Honor. Judge Merchan, stricken. Stricken means that Robert Costello's one-word answer, yes, cannot be used as evidence by the jury. The lawyers can't quote that later. Robert Costello didn't like the objections. It's not unusual for lawyers as witnesses to have their own opinion about the objections. But it is very unusual for them to, in any way, voice that opinion about the objections from the witness stand. Attorney Michael Cohen surely had some feelings about the objections when he was on the witness stand, but Attorney Michael Cohen behaved in a fully professional way for a lawyer testifying under oath in court. That's not a comment on Michael Cohen's credibility, simply his manner as a witness, which was fully respectful of the process, fully respectful of the judge at all times, and fully respectful of Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer cross-examining him, to whom Michael Cohen's most frequent answer was, yes, sir. Yes, sir, repeatedly. Always called him sir. And here is when we all saw and heard something we've never seen in a courtroom before. Little did we know there was much more to come after this. Question. I would like you to take a look at the second paragraph of that email. Do you see where it says the question of timing is premature? Answer, yeah, I see that. Question. What did you mean by that? Ms. Hovinger, objection. Judge Merchan sustained. Robert Costello, geez. I was in the back of the courtroom. I was in the last row. And I could hear Robert Costello, who's sitting right beside the jury, say, geez, all the way back there about the objection. That was his attitude toward the objection. And more importantly, that was his attitude about Judge Merchan sustaining the objection. Geez. That was Robert Costello's objection to the judge sustaining the objection. Judge Merchan was shocked. I was shocked. We have never seen Judge Merchan shocked before. Emil Bovey was no doubt shocked and tried to race past the moment with another question, which got another objection and was sustained. But Judge Merchan leaned across the bench and raised his voice, looking directly at the witness right there, and said, I'm sorry, meaning, what did you just say? And after a silence, Judge Merchan, in an agitated but not yet angry way, once again said, I'm sorry. And again, meaning, what did you just say? Of course, he knew what he said. He said, geez. And that drew attention to what Robert Costello said. The judge drew that attention in a big way. That line that I just told you from Judge Merchan saying, I'm sorry, that line does not appear in the court transcript because too much was happening in the courtroom for the court reporter who had never seen anything like this. And this is something that people who deal with court transcripts for many years know, especially transcripts produced at very high speed, like the daily transcripts in this trial. They frequently have small and always unimportant errors, words left out, words that are simply incorrect. For example, in that same transcript, earlier, when Robert Costello is introduced in the transcript as a witness, the transcript incorrectly says Robert J. Costello, a witness called on behalf of the people. Now, that is wrong. Everyone knows that's wrong. Robert Costello was called on behalf of the defense. And the lawyers on both sides of the case will be able to use and work with this transcript without suffering any harms from those small typos that they will all recognize and other occasional words left out. But that's just something you have to know about these transcripts. This transcript is amazing. I have never seen a transcript make a mistake on any crucial evidentiary word from testimony, but the relevant factoid about this is simply that these transcripts can sometimes be slightly wrong. After Judge Merchan said, "I'm sorry," the second time, by which he meant, "Pardon me, what did you just say?" And he meant it in a threatening manner. Robert Costello said, "Strike it." Now, you sometimes hear lawyers during cross-examination begin a question and then say, "Strike it," and they start over again. And that doesn't mean that the question they started actually gets stricken from the record. It's just almost a note to themselves that the question wasn't going to come out right, so let me start this over again. It's like the lawyer saying, "Never mind, I'm not going to ask that question, I'm going to ask another question." Everyone understands that code when a lawyer says that. So Robert Costello's lawyer reflex came in to say, "Strike it," over something that even he, at that point, realized he never should have said, that wise guy, "Geez," about the judge, publicly, in the room, in front of the jury, attacking the judge, sustaining an objection. It was a level of madness by a witness who actually is a criminal defense lawyer that you could only wonder whether he should be immediately subjected to a sobriety test. How else could that happen? That's how out there and crazy and out of control that moment was from a criminal defense lawyer, but it got worse. Judge Merchan, in his typically calm voice, shifted into saying, "Counsel, let's take a minute. Can the jury please step out?" The court officers then led the jury out of the room, whereupon Judge Merchan turned to the witness beside him, using a voice sterner than anything we have heard from Judge Merchan. Judge Merchan, "Mr. Costello, I would like to discuss proper decorum in my courtroom." Robert Costello, "But I'm sorry." Go ahead. Judge Merchan, "I want to discuss proper decorum in my courtroom." Robert Costello, "Right." Judge Merchan, "Okay. So when there is a witness on the stand, if you don't like my ruling, you don't say, 'Geez,' okay? And then you don't say, 'Strike it,' because I'm the only one that can strike testimony in the courtroom. Do you understand that?" Robert Costello, "I understand." Judge Merchan, "Okay. And then, if you don't like my ruling, you don't give me side eye and you don't roll your eyes. Do you understand that? Do you understand that?" Robert Costello, "I understand that. I understand what you're saying." Judge Merchan, "Okay, thank you. Let's get the jury back." "Are you staring me down right now?" Robert Costello, "No. I'm just wondering how." Judge Merchan, "Clear the courtroom, please. Clear the courtroom." Robert Costello, "Do you want me to answer your question?" The sergeant, "Sir, please." The court officer, "Step outside, please. Step outside. Step to the side, please." And we all began to get up to leave the courtroom. Those of us who knew that the judge had full authority to clear that courtroom. I mean, half of the reporters in the courtroom tried to stay in their seats. Some tried to argue with the judge. One said that there's a press lawyer in the courtroom with them who will insist that they have a right to be in the courtroom. And for 2 pages of court transcript, there are entries that we've never seen before in a court transcript, quoting the court officer saying, "Step out," repeatedly. A person in the audience saying, "Why? This is an open courtroom." The court officer saying, "This is not an open courtroom. We will answer all questions in the hallway. Please step out. This is a Supreme Court courtroom. Step out." Person in the audience, "This is an open courtroom." Now, you can spend your life reading court transcripts, and you will never see the entry "person in the audience" and have that person be speaking. That does not happen. What we have for the minutes it took to clear that courtroom, what we had then was chaos in the courtroom, all caused by the wise guy on the witness stand who decided he was going to show the judge that he was smarter than the judge. And worse for him and for the Trump defense, he was going to show the jury that he thinks he's smarter than their judge. And it is very unlikely that that jury thinks that there is anyone in that courtroom who is as smart as their judge. After 5 minutes in the hallway that seemed like forever, we were brought back into the courtroom. having no idea what was said in our absence, but knowing it was about the wise guy on the witness stand. This evening at 7:27 p.m., the final pages of the complete transcript arrived in our inbox, and we got to see what happened when Judge Merchan cleared the courtroom. The transcript says, quote, "The courtroom is cleared of people in the audience by the court officers at this time. The court, all right, let the record reflect that it's now 5 after 4. Let the record also reflect that the court officers had great difficulty clearing the courtroom because the courtroom is made up primarily of the press. And I can appreciate that the press wants to be present for every part of these proceedings. Therefore, this record is not sealed. The press will have access to this record. The fact that I had to clear the courtroom and that the court officers, including the captain, had great difficulty clearing the courtroom, and that there was argument back and forth between the press and including counsel for the press, goes to why I had to clear the courtroom in the first place. And that is, sir, your conduct is contemptuous right now. I'm putting you on notice that your conduct is contemptuous. If you try to stare me down one more time, I will remove you from the stand. I will strike his entire testimony. Do you understand me?" Mr. Bovee, "Yes, Judge, I understand." The court, listen to the question and answer the question. The witness, "Can I say something, please?" The court, no, this is not a conversation." The witness, "Okay." The court, "All right, we can bring the press back in, please." The court officer, "Ready, Your Honor?" The court, "Yes, please." The court officer, "Okay." The press is entering the courtroom. That team of able court officers who are already doing an extraordinary above and beyond the call of duty job every day, beginning for many of them at 6:30 a.m., had to do something today as a team that they never expected they were going to have to do. Clear that courtroom. They did it calmly, correctly, using their authority, understanding the confusion that many reporters were suffering. But they got us all out of that courtroom and got us all back in that courtroom 5 minutes later. They did it with remarkable professionalism. It is just remarkable how quickly and efficiently they went into action as a team of court officers for something they never expected to have to do in that room. And they had to do it because the only witness testifying for Donald Trump's defense was contemptuous from the start. And so, as angry a moment as that moment was for Judge Merchan, that anger was a small fraction of what many other judges would have legitimately shown for the utterly contemptuous witness for the Trump defense. Michael Cohen testified to the jury that he didn't hire Robert Costello because he didn't trust him. Michael Cohen said he believed that Robert Costello would tell Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump everything that Michael Cohen might tell Robert Costello. Robert Costello's obvious contempt for the judge probably convinced most of the jurors that Michael Cohen was right about the contemptuous Robert Costello.